Can you see that okay? Terrific. All right.
We can.
So we're very pleased to be here tonight to tell you about how we've been fighting ghost buses. We're going to talk about what ghost buses are, what causes them, the progress that we've made so far in fighting ghost buses, what we're going to do next, and then talk about some of the data that we can share with you if you're interested in helping us publish this information for the public. My name's Will. I work on digital products at the CTA in the communications department. And I'll let Locke and Austin introduce themselves.
My name is Locke. I am the system administrator at the Planning and Innovation Department at the CTA.
And my name is Austin Chambers. I'm a programmer analyst in the CTA technology department.
Now, I know a lot of you know this already. You're very familiar with ghost buses, but just to make sure that everybody's on the same page, when we talk about ghost buses, what we're talking about is a bus that has a countdown to its arrival. So you're sitting and waiting for the bus, but then the countdown finishes and the bus never shows up. And when I say watching a countdown, that can mean watching the Maps app on your phone, Apple Maps or Google Maps, or Transit app. It can mean watching the Ventra app. You could be on ctabustracker.com. You could be looking at the bus shelter signs. You can see a picture of that here, sort of at the top of the bus shelter, these LED screens. Any of these places are places that you can watch a countdown, and any of them are susceptible to ghost buses. Ghost buses can be caused by a number of different things, and they all require slightly different solutions, which we'll talk about very soon. One of the most prominent reasons that ghost buses happen is a trip being canceled. So we get real-time information, real-time predictions for the arrival of a bus when a bus starts moving. Before a bus starts moving, we show times from the schedule. And you can see the difference in this screenshot over here on the right. The 7-minute prediction and the 16-minute prediction are both real-time predictions. You can see the little radio wave icons here. That indicates that the bus is sharing its location in real time, and we are projecting when it's going to arrive based on its speed and location. These other predicted times, 24, 33, 40, are schedule-based predictions. They're just based on when the bus is scheduled to arrive, but it hasn't started yet. And what can happen is the trip gets canceled in its entirety. So a bus operator doesn't show up, calls off sick, or there's a mechanical problem with the bus, or for some reason the trip just isn't going to happen. Well, previously, before the improvements that we're going to talk about tonight, we didn't have any way to communicate that. And so these schedule-based predictions, 24, 33, 40, would count down until their arrival time, and then they would disappear without the bus coming because we didn't have a way to warn you that the trip was canceled. When this happens, most often it's the full trip, but it can happen with partial trips too. So another example is if you've got a very long route. That route might be divided up between two different bus drivers, bus operators, right? And the first half of the route is driven by the first driver, and then there's a relief, and the second driver takes the bus and finishes the rest of the trip. But if the first half of the trip happens because the first driver shows up, but then the relief driver does not show up for whatever reason, the second half of the trip can be canceled. So when we talk about canceled trips, it can be the whole trip, or it can just be part of the trip. And in that case, it would be a real-time prediction that you see counting down and then not happening. Now, when trips get canceled, there can be knock-on effects from that. If you've got, for example, 2 trips in a row that get canceled, that would leave a big gap in the schedule. And big gaps are the enemy. We don't want people to be standing at a bus stop for a long time waiting for their bus. Certainly not for 3 headways, which is what would happen if you had 2 cancellations in a row. And so very often what will happen in that case is that the scheduled times for the upcoming buses will get shifted to try to balance the headway, it's called, and make sure that they're going out in an even interval, even if that interval is slightly longer than was originally scheduled. And that's really good for service, but it makes tracking really tricky because suddenly we're not running the schedule anymore. We're doing service restoration. And if you're waiting near the beginning of the route, that can cause ghost buses as well. A third thing that can cause ghost buses is unscheduled reroutes. For us to be able to offer arrival predictions for buses, we have to know where the bus is going. We have to know what its path is going to be. And so if it goes off of its path in a way that we didn't anticipate, for example, if there's a water main that breaks in the middle of the street, or there's a demonstration, or there was construction scheduled at the last minute, we don't know what path the bus is taking when it leaves its regularly scheduled route, which means that we don't know what to predict farther down the line. And so that's a situation where you might see a real-time prediction disappear off of the list. When the bus gets back on route, those predictions will start up again. But at that point, you might have already left the bus stop or made other plans or called an Uber or whatever. And then there's a grab bag of less common reasons that still do pop up from time to time. You might have a bus that's going along just fine, but then the GPS flakes out, or the modem dies, or maybe the operator is logged onto a wrong run. There are, half a dozen different other things that can happen, but these are the big ones. So that's where ghost buses come from. And it's been a big problem. It's been a problem for the CTA, and it's been a problem for virtually every agency in the country. It's a technically complicated problem because there are so many different causes, and it's something that we've been struggling with, and other agencies have been struggling with, particularly in the midst of COVID. You can see that these articles are dated, late 2022, early 2023. This is when the problem was really sort of at its peak or at its nadir, however you want to think about it. And it's something that we as an industry have sort of been figuring out together. Anybody who's waited at a bus stop in the cold knows that this is an important problem, but it can help to put some data behind this as well. And one way to measure the scale of the problem is to measure the difference between the number of buses that are scheduled to go out, the number of trips that are scheduled to go out, and the number of trips that actually went out. And that difference is going to correlate to the number of ghost buses. And you can see here, this is a screenshot from our performance dashboard, transferchicago.com/performance. You can see that these two lines representing the number of scheduled trips and the number of actual trips delivered are pretty close together. This was not the case in 2022. We've had to work hard to get these two lines to match. We're running 99% of scheduled service now. That did not used to be the case. And that was when ghost buses were most prevalent. The problem was most pronounced. But this is one way we track the scale of the problem and how much progress we're making. Another way to track our progress is the number of complaints that we receive. So our customer service department logs every email and every call and tags it, categorizes it. And you can see here, we've got two different categories combined together. The yellow is if somebody called in or wrote in and complained specifically about the tracker. This is bus tracker and train tracker combined. More often, somebody is writing in to complain about a service delay or a bus pass up or some other issue, but then they mentioned that there was a tracking issue in passing, and we tagged those as well. We started tagging those in March 2022. And you can see in 2022, the problem was fairly severe, and we've been making improvements every subsequent year since then. This 2025 number is year to date, obviously. And then yet one more data point comes to us from our friends at the Transit app. If any of you have used the Transit app, you know that there's a mode, a feature in Transit app called Go Mode. And Go Mode says, is a way for you to say, okay, this is the trip that I want to take, start tracking my location. And what this allows them to do is if it sees that your bus, the bus that you had intended to get on, had counted down, but you haven't moved, you're still in at the same bus stop, still waiting, this message will pop up saying, did the bus come? And if you select no, it hasn't come, Transit app counts that as a ghost bus, and they share those numbers with us. You can see those numbers here as a percentage of service, where it started out as around 2% in Q4 of 2022, and we've made steady incremental progress since then. So a lot of you are transit riders, and so you don't need any convincing about the importance of good real-time information about your trip, but it's nice to have the data to back it up as well. And there have been studies that show that good, accurate real-time information reduces both the perceived wait time and the actual wait time for transit riders. Perceived wait time means that if you're watching a countdown going 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you're not going to think that you've been waiting for 15 minutes. You'll be able to watch the countdown and track accurately exactly how long you have been waiting. And then it also reduces actual wait time because you'll be able to time when you get to the bus stop. You have to leave your house or leave your office at a certain point in order to make your bus. And as long as the arrival predictions are accurate, you're able to time that precisely. So that's the goal. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the most prominent causes of ghost buses is canceled trips. And so that's one of the things that we tackled first. And because there are so many different places that these countdowns show up, they show up in the Ventra app, they show up in third-party apps like Apple and Google and Transit app, and they show up on signage, and they show up on websites. Some of these places we control, most of them we don't. What that means is that whatever cancellation data we've got to make it freely available to everybody in as easy a way as possible. So that's the goal. And I'm very happy to say that as of earlier this month, we started publishing canceled trip information out of every garage on the system. So the whole system now, all of the buses were sharing canceled trip information. And this is what that data looked like, the volume of data for the week of July 17th. The blue is the number of cancellations that we entered. And then the red is the number of reinstate activities. So that's if we find an alternate bus operator to take the trip out after all, we'll take that canceled trip and we'll reinstate it so that it shows up on the tracker accurately after all. So that's the goal. And that's a high level of what the numbers look like. Now I'm going to hand it over to Locke to talk about how we actually made this progress, the updates and the upgrades that we made. And then Austin will talk a little bit about the data.
Thank you, Will. So during the early stages of our solution development phase, we conduct a root cause analysis to identify what are the factors that affect bus tracker prediction accuracy. We need to know what we are dealing with to develop a solution accordingly. And among the various complex operational issues in the transit industry, we identify 7 key events that have a significant negative impact on production performance. To go over some of these events, the first event, as described by Will, is trip cancellation, which is relatively straightforward to understand. And the second one is what we call improper layover location. This is in the event that a bus operator take his or her layover at a location that is not the designated area. In this example that I illustrate with this screenshot is on the Ashland bus route that used to go all the way to Clark and Belpain. In this case, both buses were perfectly on time. Nevertheless, the prediction that they are providing is delayed. So just some quick example of the situation that we will run into that make problematic prediction, but the common characteristic among them is that it involves some sort of scheduled deviation. So whenever we operate in a way that is different than the schedule, we are subject to some sort of prediction accuracy issue. Next slide, please, Will. So just to provide one more case study, this particular one examined the impact of a defective equipment on production accuracy. In this case, bus number 1796 was operating on Route 93, and it experienced a dead motor and remained idle for over an hour and a half. And despite being out of service, the bus continued to generate delay and ghost predictions, misleading our customer about its actual status. So another straightforward to understand situation, but complex to resolve in a systematic manner. Next slide. So the event that I just described highlight the need for CTA being able to react to schedule deviations in a timely manner. With this overarching goal in mind, we began developing a roadmap to implement what we call the disruption management project. It is intended to improve bus service management to support service changes during disruption, such as unexpected and expected road condition closure, inclement weather, and vehicle maintenance issue, and help adjust ghost buses and other service challenges that frustrated CTA customers. Next slide. But then we also realized that disruption management implementation takes significant time and effort. The level of effort is very high. And in the meantime, at that time, during peak of COVID, we need some easy wins to damage control the situation. So in 2022, our first action items were to include launching the new CTA Bus Tracker Responsive website and activate the Bus Tracker Prediction Enhancer and carry out many application upgrades, essentially to lay the groundwork for a comprehensive solution implementation. And here we are in July 2025, we implement trip cancellation, which is a significant milestone. Next slide, Will. So just to highlight one of the milestone is that the Bus Tracker Prediction Enhancer project was a low-hanging fruit back in the day, and it was relatively easy to implement and effective in damage control the bus prediction accuracy issue we had during COVID. So this feature collect historical data and to account for some of the schedule limitations. Schedule data is one of the backbone data that support the CTA bus tracker to make prediction. But even for those of you who might not take transit just from your experience in driving, we know that the traffic condition on a Wednesday during peak hours is very different than Friday peak hour. And it is inherently challenging for the schedule, for a fixed schedule, to reflect that traffic reality. So this is a relatively easy to implement tool to account for that variability and traffic volatility that's natural to occur. And I guess just to quickly highlight what we are looking at here. So this is a evaluation result of after we turn on Prediction Enhancer in 2023. For Route 9, we observe pretty significant improvement for Ashland orange line. And when we perform forensic analysis, this is primarily due to the tool being able to factor in the transfer activity when customer transfer from the orange line to the bus and vice versa. Next slide. And another significant milestone that we achieved was to upgrade the Ivan for the entire CTA bus fleet. The Ivan is the device that control our onboarding function on the buses, including making automate announcement, the destination sign, and that it essentially support the bus tracker system to make prediction. And in preparation for implement disruption management, we partner with vendor Clover Device to implement a fleet-wide upgrade to Ivan 5, marking a significant milestone in advancing the disruption management roadmap. It was not an easy task. Technology is only a part of it, as we need to manage the people part of getting the buses, because after all, we have 2,000 buses, and most of the time they are making service. So we need to do a lot of coordination with different departments to get the buses and have the technician in place to upgrade the system. Next slide. So the structural and process change was a major puzzle that we need to solve to successfully implement disruption management. In the early stage of the project, we spoke with many transit agencies, including AC Transit in the Bay Area, the Toronto Transit Commission, and WMATA in Washington, D.C., to essentially learn from their experience. From these conversations, we learned that preparing the technology is only half of the challenge. Establishing the organizational structure and the standard operating procedure, the SOP, is equally critical to a successful implementation of the disruption management project. With that, we work with the CTA control center, bus operation department, and bus instruction departments to revise and develop 5 standard operating procedure. Specifically, SOP 8189 outlines the communication process when we need to use disruption management to cancel work assignment. So which position, like it needs to outline which position is responsible for providing trip cancellation information to the control center. Where is the initiation point where that information is coming from? And once the control center obtain that information, the timing and the process for canceling trip using the disruption management and how to deliver this information to our bus operator and the required actions for our bus operator to acknowledge the instruction. All of these elements needed to sort out before we start using disruption management trip cancellation feature. But I'm happy to say that this was done in June 2025. Next slide. So this is the fun part. After the successful deployment of the disruption management cancellation feature, our next step is to implement Detour. As our customer have consistently indicated, Detour communication is a key area for improvement at CTA. So this is a pilot we launched for the St. Patrick's Day. As you can see, this is route number 3 King Drive. It normally goes north on Michigan Avenue, but for this event, we need to detour the bus to State Street. And using disruption management, we were able to publish this information publicly that the stops on State Street is now servicing the King Drive bus, and that with the information of the start time and the estimated end time all being available through the API. Next slide. So this is another soon to come feature. While we have the technology and SOP in place to support using the most basic disruption management function, an additional tool is needed to further utilize the program. Traditionally, Detour information is communicated by paper bulletins. So imagine a bus operator report to the garage and he look for the bulletin board to get the information that he need for his or her work on the day. However, bus operator may sometimes miss these notices, or the Detour configuration simply have changed that is different than the bulletin. to address this operational challenges, we are implementing the turn-by-turn feature to provide bus operator with clear real-time instructions, both during detour and when returning to normal operation. This is a screenshot that I took, and this is the expected result on what we call the TCH, the transit control head, a position left upper corner of the bus operator seat. So this feature essentially will serve as like a GPS device for the bus operator, except that this is real time. When we have a detour, bus operator will get this information real time without having to fully rely on the paper bus service bulletin. And with that, I will pass it to Austin to talk about how to get this wonderful new data.
Thank you. So I assume a lot of you have worked with the API before, but if you haven't, the documentations has been updated for this new version of the API in the same location, transitchicago.com/developers/bus tracker. You get from a base level 100,000 requests per day, and if you ever need more than that, you can email Will, and you guys can figure out how much you need. The base URL is still the same at www.cta-bustracker.com. And the one thing I wanted to reiterate that Will kind of touched upon is we don't really control how this data is used. So, anecdotally at work, I get a lot of customer feedback for third-party apps I've never seen before. So there's really no one stopping you from using like CTA branding and things and just saying this is the bus tracker. So keep that in mind for users and if you're ever using any third-party apps yourself. Slide. So here's an example API response. As you can see here, I'm using the get predictions endpoints and the stop ID 15904. If you don't know already, you can get stop IDs from both Google Maps or CTA-bustracker.com, and you can use the GPS feature as well. And as you see on the side here, you by default get an XML feed as a response. There's a parameter so that you can get JSON if you prefer to work with that format. And it has all of the usual fields that it has. It has the timestamp of when the prediction was generated. It has the time that is predicting for the bus to arrive, and it has the scheduled time, as well as the vehicle number and the prediction time in like a whole number, like 9 minutes in this case. The one big difference is that DYN field, if you can see it. So that, can you do slide? Sorry. That DYN field is how we handle cancellations for now. So if that field is 1, that indicates that the trip you're making a prediction for is canceled. So if you're going to write any code, you'll want to include logic that checks for that flag. We recommend displaying this information either with a strike through on that trip or by replacing the trip with the word cancel or an abbreviation. Just so it's more clear and uniform for users to understand. And more dynamic action types will be rolled out soon. In the documentation, there's a full document of like what we're capable of doing. Right now, we're still training some of the controllers on the other features that will explain to you.
Yeah. So I just want to go back and reiterate something that Locke and Austin both touched on, which is that we are very pleased and proud to be offering this data now, but publishing it is only the first half of it. We really need developers to take it up and actually use it. If you've used the Bus Tracker API before, you might have used version 2 of the Bus Tracker API that did not include this field that Austin is talking about. Upgrading to version 3 of the API that includes this information is very easy. Use your same API key. You don't have to reapply for anything. You just call version 3 in the URL where you used to call version 2, and you get this new data. It's not a huge change in the payload that you get back, but you do get this DYN field, which is very important. And to Austin's point, right now it's going to be either 0 or 1, but as we start to build out the reroute feature that we talked about, you'll see more dynamic action types in the future. Speaking of which, that's our next step is reroute information. So we've already piloted it once, as Locke alluded to. We are going to keep experimenting with it and build it out so that we can offer it as consistently as we now offer cancellation information. We are also working on GTFS real time, which is a new data feed for all this type of information that we've been talking about. GTFS real time is the industry standard in the transit industry for sharing real time information. So these APIs that we've been talking about, they're REST APIs. They offer JSON, they offer XML, but they are sort of specific to the CTA. The industry has moved more and more in the direction of this binary format called GTFS real time, where as long as every transit agency uses it and adheres to the specification, you can use open source tools and ingest the information. And if you build it for one transit agency, it will work for any other transit agency that uses GTFS real time. So we're very excited about this standard. We are actively working on our GTFS data feeds. We're going to have one for alerts. We're going to have one for vehicle locations. We're going to have one for trip updates. The trip updates one will include the cancellation information for bus and for train as well. GTFS real-time makes reroute information a little bit trickier. Our API has a very well-established way to share reroute information. GTFS real-time has an experimental specification for sharing reroute information. It was merged into the spec last year, March 2024, and it's still marked as experimental. It's trip modifications is the name of it. And we're very optimistic about it. There is a lot of industry momentum behind it, but it's not all that broadly supported yet. For example, Google Maps does not read trip modifications yet. So one of our big challenges in the near-term future is not just publishing the reroute information, but figuring out how to publish it in ways that data consumers will actually make use of it. And if you're interested in more in GTFS, you can find out more about that format at gtfs.org. We don't want this to be the only time that we talk. We're very pleased to be in touch with you, and we hope that you'll stay in touch. If you have signed up for a Bus Tracker API key with an email address that you actually check, that means that we already have a way to get in touch with you, and we will get in touch when we have new information to share. For example, when we start publishing reroute information more consistently, or when we've got any other new goodies to share with you, we'll have you on a contact list. You can stay up to date with general CTA news by signing up for our newsletter, transitchicago.com/newsletter. And you can get in touch with the team at webmaster@transitchicago.com if you've got questions about data, or if you've got feedback about how easy or how difficult that data is to use, or about the plans that we've got coming up that we've talked about, or if you've got a stray idea, our inbox is always open. And I want to call out specifically, if you're interested in helping us beta test GTFS real time. It's not available yet, but when it is available, we would love to have some testers poke at it and tell us what they think. So with that, we are happy to take your questions.
That was fabulous. I consider myself a seasoned CTA writer since, I don't know, 1988. There was a lot of stuff in here that I didn't know. Not just about the ghost buses. This was really great stuff. Thank you, folks. All right, some questions we have from the folks at Shy Hack Night. First question is regarding the prediction enhancer. Did you look into whether the schedule should be updated to account for day-to-day variations? And was the intervention just in the prediction real-time feed, or were there updates made to the actual schedule itself?
I can take this one, Will. Since 2023, CTA has partnered with a consultant, C-Sketch, to redevelop the method to perform runtime analysis. And we have some preliminary good results that were independently evaluated by MIT. So to that point, we recognize the need to a more modernized approach to update the time on the schedule. And that is another major project that we are working on. We have staff that are performing one-time analysis using this new method. More to come, but for now, I do want to point out that this is being recognized internally since 2023, and we have a roadmap to update the schedule to have more realistic one time, so we get better prediction from bus tracker.
Thank you, Luck. That's very valuable. Will, back to you. You mentioned that you would want more developers to work with the API. What kind of features or services would you hope that developers would create with so many trackers out there? Curious to hear your thoughts on exactly what you think is missing.
I mean, the thing that I've been concentrating on recently is getting anybody who's been using version 2 of the API to upgrade to version 3. Because depending on how you've implemented it, if you're still on version 2, there is a potential that you're showing ghost buses to people if you're just showing the original prediction timestamp without having that DYN field to tell you that it's canceled. So please help us fight ghost buses by upgrading from version 2 to version 3 of the API. And again, if you've got any questions about it, webmaster@transitchicago.com. And then as far as further improvements, we're just really excited about reroutes and starting to dig into not just sharing them over the API, but hoping to get on this, trip modifications bandwagon and help push the industry forward.
Got it. Okay, terrific. Thank you. With the disruption, I think you may have answered this. With these disruption management interventions, would they have been easier if CTA published the GTFS real time, which has the support for detours and cancellations? And part 2 of the same question is, will the implementation change once CTA begins publishing GTFS real time?
No, it wouldn't have been easier with GTFS real time because it wasn't a matter of the format that the data was shared in. It was a matter of not having the data in the first place. So we needed the system to be able to put in, okay, well, this operator has called off of work. We don't have enough people on the extra board to send the bus out. We needed to Locke's point, not only the software system in order to input the data, we needed the position, the job description to somebody in the control center be inputting that data into the system. So getting those standard operating procedures on the one hand and the technology on the other, the software to get the data input was the hard part. Upgrading the API to then publish that data was actually comparatively simple.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about users of the API. Well, first of all, is Google Maps up to date with the newest CTA API?
Not quite yet, but they are working on it. We are in communication.
Which app is the most current?
Right now, we've confirmed that, first of all, CTABusTracker.com is the bus tracker that we run, and so that gets all improvements immediately. So that's sort of the ground truth if you want to be, seeing something directly from the CTA. The folks at Transit App jumped on this pretty much immediately, and so if you're a Transit App user, you are also seeing canceled trip information from us in that app.
Who's behind Transit App? Do you know?
They are. The company I think is also called Transit App. They're based out of Montreal. They're just a terrific group to work with.
Got it. Okay. So question that you may or may not be able to answer, and I don't know is a perfectly acceptable response. Have transit funding issues in Illinois and rolling down from the feds, has that affected these projects? And if so, how can we help?
They have not affected these projects yet. These have been a long time coming. We started working on these years ago. I'm afraid I don't have any special insight to share here. I'm reading the news every morning like everybody else, so I don't really have any inside information about which way this is going to go. But it does stand to reason that if funding doesn't go the way we all hope, it's going to be harder to do more projects like this.
Just know that you have support in this community. I remember when Brenna Berman, who was our former CIO, spoke at Shy Hack Night. Gosh, this must have been 5 or 10 years ago. She said that one of the things that she loves about Shy Hack Night is that she knows if there's something that they can't do by themselves or can't be informed of by themselves, that she's got an army of 200 do-gooders that want to help. So consider that. Let's get a little bit personal here. The question for each of you. Tell us a little bit about your career journeys. How did you get your role at the CTA? Will, as long as you're on screen, let's start with you.
Yeah, this is actually my first government job. I worked in academia before this and sort of started work in digital communications, updating websites, building websites, gradually over the years, transitioned more and more into working on digital products instead of just, publishing. And just always loved the CTA. So when I saw this job come up, I was ready to explore something beyond academia. I've always wanted, something mission driven. I jumped at the chance and was lucky enough to get it.
When I am bragging about Chicago, which I do constantly, one of the things I shout out is that we got a great transit system. Everything needs improvement, but we have a solid transportation system. Locke, how about you?
Well, I was born and raised in Hong Kong, which is known to have one of the
Yeah,
best transit system in the world.
right.
So since I was a kid, I always know that I want to be in transit. And out of luck, I have no idea what I was doing when I was in college. But I
Did
attended
any of
urban
us?
planning. Sorry, say it again.
Did any of us know?
I didn't. Maybe some people did. Um, but I studied for transportation planning when I was in college. And after many internship experience all over the city and even outside of city with PACE, and at one point I was in the internship position with the Lake County Planning Department, I end up at CTA at the beginning of my career being what was my title? Bus scheduling analyst. So I first started as a bus scheduling analyst to create schedule for the buses, basically, and then I transitioned to be working in rail scheduling, and ultimately transitioned into my current position as the system administrator that manage the schedule data that interact with the bus tracker system and other CTA enterprise system. So without knowing it, I already got 12 years working with the CTA. That's like the high level summary of my time with the CTA.
Fabulous. Austin, how about you?
Yeah, so I was born in Evanston and spent most of my childhood there, and I also went to Northwestern. So growing up, my family didn't really drive, so I always kind of used the CTA from a young age, and I always was very enthusiastic about it. That being said, I did not. I've been here my entire adult life, so I'm like going on my eighth year, and I started as an intern in planning, right out of college. So I studied computer science and Japanese literature. So I had no
Awesome.
real idea of what transit work was like, and it wasn't even what I was actively looking at. It was just through getting that internship from like a grad student told me about it who was transitioning into working there full time, and he told me to apply, and I liked it a lot. So
That's fantastic. I'm not a big driver either, but that's because I'm terrible at it. One more question for someone who joined a little bit late. How frequent are the cancellations, and do you think having more realistic headways could encourage organizational or policy change, like more funding or more hires? What are your thoughts on that?
So I will flip back. Are you still seeing my screen okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Go back
yeah.
to that
So
the first this one.
yeah, so we are publishing something like, just over 70 cancellations in the worst case, at least in this particular week. And we're as a percentage of the amount of service we're running, that's quite low. I wish that we had had this ability in 2022, but it just, sort of took the time that it took. And so, it certainly helps that we are already running 99% of our scheduled service. And then this feature is enough to just like close that last remaining gap to make sure that nobody's waiting for a bus that isn't going to come. Can you say the second part of the question again, Adam?
Sure. The question was, do you think having more realistic headways could encourage organizational or policy change, like more funding or more hires?
Well, the policy part is above my pay grade, so I won't answer that. But I will say that we are pleased to be at a place, at least currently, at this point with, in funding, that we get to be moving in the opposite direction. We've been rolling out our frequent network and adding more and more bus routes to the list of buses where we are able to run 10-minute headways or better from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And so we're hoping to demonstrate just how, good the service can be when it's funded.
Fabulous.
Adding
Will?
to that point,
Yeah, go ahead.
just want to provide some additional comments on this question. I have been a transit advocate for my entire life, and as much as I'd like to have more realistic headway, to have more reliable service, the workforce availability challenge is not a CTA specific issue. The entire country is dealing with this significant challenge. When we spoke with LA Metro, they hire a bus operator that will actually drive 3 hours from the suburb to go into the downtown Los Angeles area, and they would actually spend the night on their vehicle and then go back to work. And in San Jose, I forgot what agency, they have subsidized housing for bus operator to apply for the job. So many different agencies in the country are doing different things to attract talent, but to that is to highlight the kind of challenge that we are facing with hiring bus operator. It's not a Chicago challenge; it is a national challenge to find bus operator who is willing to do the job.
It's amazing how
Sorry.
workforce impacts so much of a city's daily life, and you don't even think about it. I'm sorry, Will, did you have something to add?
Oh, I was just gonna
Nope.
say it's not even a national
Austin?
problem; it's an international problem. I know the city of Kyoto also cannot hire enough bus drivers to fulfill like increased demand. So it's just hard to get bus drivers in the modern age.
Amazing. Austin, Locke, Will, thank you so much. This has been absolutely a terrific presentation. And A, I love what you're doing at CTA, and B, I love that you're passionate about it and that you really, really understand your business. With that, I am going to go off camera and turn it over to my good friend Sneha, who is going to take us into the hacking portion of the evening. Sneha, take it away.